My friends, I have been on a journey of husbandry. I went primarily to see at first hand conditions in the drought states, to see how effectively federal and local authorities are taking care of pressing problems of relief, and also how they are to work together to defend the people of this country against the effects of future droughts. I saw drought devastation in 9 states. I talked with families who had lost their wheat crop, lost their corn crop, lost their livestock, lost the water in their well, lost their garden, and come through to the end of the summer without $1 of cash resources, facing the winter without feed or food, facing a planting season without seed to put in the ground. That was the extreme case, but there are thousands and thousands of families on western farms who share the same difficulties. I saw cattlemen who, because of lack of grass or lack of winter feed, have been compelled to sell all but their breeding stock and will need help to carry even these through the coming winter. I saw livestock kept alive only because water had been brought to them long distances in tank cars. I saw other farm families who have not lost everything, but who, because they have made only partial crops, must have some form of help if they are to continue farming next spring. I shall never forget the fields of wheat, so blasted by heat that they cannot be harvested. I shall never forget field after field of corn, stunted, earless, stripped of leaves, for what the sun left, the grasshoppers took. I saw brown pasture that would not keep a cow on 50 acres. Yet I would not have you think for a single minute that there is permanent disaster in these drought regions, or that the picture I saw meant depopulating these areas. No cracked earth, no blistering sun, no burning wind, no grasshoppers are a permanent match for the indomitable American farmers and stockmen and their wives and children who have carried on through desperate days and inspire us with their self-reliance, their tenacity, and their courage. It was their father's task to make homes. It is their task to keep these homes. And it is our task to help them win their fight. First, let me talk for a minute about this autumn and the coming winter. We have the option, in the case of families who need actual subsistence, of putting them on the dole or putting them to work. They do not want to go on the dole, and they are 1,000% right. We agree, therefore, that we must put them to work for a decent wage, and when we reach that decision, we kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because these families will earn enough by working not only to subsist themselves, but to buy food for their stock and seed for next year's planting. And into this scheme of things there fit, of course, the government lending agencies, which next year, as in the past, will help with production loans. Every governor with whom I have talked is in full accord with this program of providing work for these farm families, just as every governor agrees that the individual states will take care of their unemployables, but that the cost of employing those who are entirely able and willing to work must be borne by the federal government. If then we know, as we do today, the approximate number of farm families who will require some form of work relief from now on through the winter, we face the question of what kind of work they ought to do. Let me make it clear that this is not a new question, because it has already been answered to a greater or less extent in every one of the drought communities. Beginning in 1934, when we also had a serious drought condition, the state and federal governments cooperated in planning a large number of projects, many of them directly aimed at the alleviation of future drought conditions. In accordance with that program, for example, literally thousands of ponds or small reservoirs have been built in order to supply water for stock and to lift the level of the underground water to protect wells from going dry. Thousands of wells have been drilled or deepened. Community lakes have been created, and irrigation projects are being pushed. Water conservation by means such as these is being expanded as a result of this new drought all through the Great Plains area, the Western Corn Belt, and in the states that lie further south. In the Middle West, water conservation is not so pressing a problem, and here the work projects run more to soil erosion control and the building of farm-to-market roads. Spending like this is not waste. It would spell future waste if we did not spend for such things now. These emergency work projects provide money to buy food and clothing for the winter. They keep the livestock on the farm. They provide seed for a new crop. And best of all, they will conserve soil and water in the future in those areas that are most frequently hit by drought. If, for example, in some local place, the water table continues to drop from the topsoil to blow away, the land values will disappear with the water and the soil. People on the farms will drift into nearby cities. The cities will have no farm trade, and the workers in the city factories and stores will have no jobs. Property values in those cities will decline. If, on the other hand, the farms within that area remain as farms with better water supply and no erosion, the farm population will stay on the land and prosper, and the nearby cities will prosper too. Property values will increase instead of disappearing. That is why it is worth our while as a nation to spend money in order to save money. I have, however, used this argument in relation only to a small area, but it holds good in its effect on the nation as a whole. Every state in the drought area is now doing and always will do business with every state outside it. The very existence of the men and women working in the clothing factories of New York, making clothes worn by farmers and their families, of the workers in the steel mills in Pittsburgh and Gary, in the automobile factories of Detroit, and in the harvester factories of Illinois, depend upon the farmer's ability to purchase the commodities that they produce. In the same way, it is the purchasing power of the workers in these factories in the cities that enables them and their wives and children to eat more beef, more pork, more wheat, more corn, more fruit, and more dairy products, and to buy more clothing made from cotton and wool and leather. In a physical and in a property sense, as well as in a spiritual sense, we are members one of another. I want to make it clear that no simple panacea can be applied to the drought problem in the whole of the drought area. Plans have to depend on local conditions, for these vary with all kinds of things, like annual rainfall, soil characteristics, altitude, and topography. Water and soil conservation methods may differ in one county from those in an adjoining county. Work to be done in the cattle and sheep country differs, of course, in type from work in the wheat country or work in the corn belt. The Great Plains Drought Area Committee has given me its preliminary recommendations for a long-time program for the Great Plains region. Using that report as a basis, we are cooperating successfully and in entire accord with the governors and state planning boards. As we get this program into operation, the people more and more will be able to maintain themselves securely on the land. That will mean a steady decline in the relief burdens that the federal government and the states have had to assume in time of drought. But more important, it will mean a greater contribution to general national prosperity by these regions that have been hit by drought. It will conserve and improve not only property values, but human values. The people in the drought area do not